the light. Running into darkness, you'd be my escape. Why have we been so easy to unfold? Future might seem every spot we're getting close. Will you follow me when the sky starts to change? Yeah, we won't be afraid. We'll never be the same again. Will you follow me? We won't leave it to chance. We can't wait on romance. We'll never be the same again. Will you follow me when the sky starts to change? Yeah, we won't be afraid. We'll never be the same again. Will you follow me when the sky starts to change? Yeah, we won't be afraid. We'll never be the same again. Will you follow me? We won't leave it to chance. We can't wait on romance. We'll never be the same
You're streaming with the Fantasy Follow. What's up, everybody? Welcome to TFF Live, the Sunday Pregame Show, Week 16 of Fantasy Football. Your Fantasy Football Championships are here. Glad to have you on the show, whether you're playing Alvin Kamara or playing against him this week. Either way, glad that you stopped in. We got a great show ahead for you. Taking a look at what we got on the show today. We got to look back at Week 15 Fantasy Football action in your semifinals. We'll take a look at the actives and inactives for the 1 p.m. games, and also we'll have starts and sits for the remainder of the Week 16 matchups. And don't forget, all show long, we are here to answer your fantasy football questions. Drop us a chat. Even if we are doing other content, we will get to your chats as soon as possible. That's what we're here for. That's what we love to do. And if you're watching on replay, please feel free to drop us a comment below. But either way, let's get right into it. Take a look back at the top scorers from Week 15, the players that helped you get into your fantasy football championships this week. The top spot for the quarterbacks, the rookie Jalen Hurts from the Philadelphia Eagles in that loss against the Cardinals. Big game, 37.82 fantasy points. That was 338 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, also 63 rushing yards with 1 touchdown on the ground. Josh Allen for the Bills in that win against the Broncos, 37.66 fantasy points. That was 359 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, also adding 33 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns there as well. Ryan Tannehill for the Titans in a win against Detroit, 37.02 fantasy points, 273 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, also 21 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. And then in fourth, Kyler Murray from the Cardinals in a win against the Eagles, 34.14 fantasy points. That was 406 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, also 29 rushing yards with 1 touchdown on the ground as well. And then Lamar Jackson for the Ravens in a win against Jacksonville, 30.22 fantasy points. That was 243 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, also adding 35 rush yards with 1 touchdown on the ground as well. Top scorers over at the wide receiver position, it was Calvin Ridley from the Falcons leading the way. That was a loss against the Bucs. 32.30 fantasy points. That was 163 yards receiving, 10 catches, 1 touchdown. DeAndre Hopkins in second for the Cardinals in that win versus the Eagles. 30.00 fantasy points. That was 169 yards receiving, 9 catches, 1 touchdown. Marvin Jones Jr. for the Lions in a loss against Tennessee. 27.20 fantasy points, 112 yards through the air, 10 catches with 1 touchdown. Stephon Diggs having a great year for the Bills. 25.70 fantasy points in that win against Denver. That was 147 yards receiving, 11 catches, no touchdowns. And then Zach Pascal for the Colts in fifth, 24.90 fantasy points in that win against Houston. That was 79 yards receiving, 5 catches, and 2 touchdowns. Top scorers at the running back position from last week, it was Tony Pollard filling in for the injured Ezekiel Elliott for the Cowboys. A big game, 31.20 fantasy points. That was a win over the 49ers. 69 yards with 2 touchdowns, also adding 6 catches for 63 yards as well. David Montgomery has been on a great run as of late for the Bears. Last week, 29.20 fantasy points in a win against the Vikings. 146 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns, adding 1 catch for 16 yards as well. Dalvin Cook continuing his great season for the Vikings. 26.90 fantasy points. That was in a loss against the Bears. 132 yards rushing with 1 touchdown, also 5 catches for 27 yards. And then J.D. McKissick for the Washington football team, 25.70 fantasy points. That was 51 yards rushing, no touchdowns, also 9 catches for 56 yards and a touchdown through the air. And then Derrick Henry for the Titans, 25.20 fantasy points. That was in that win against the Lions. 147 yards rushing, 1 touchdown, also adding 2 catches for 5 yards. And the top scorers over at the tight end spot, Darren Waller for the Raiders, 30.00 fantasy points. That was in a loss against the Chargers. Just 150 yards receiving, 9 catches, and a touchdown. Nice game for Logan Thomas from the Washington football team, 23.10 fantasy points. That was 101 yards receiving, 13 catches. Travis Kelce, as always, for the Chiefs, 22.80 fantasy points. That was in a win against the Saints. 68 yards receiving on 8 catches with 1 touchdown. Noah Fant for the Broncos, 20.80 fantasy points in that loss against the Bills. That was 68 yards receiving, 8 catches, 1 touchdown. And then Mark Andrews for the Ravens, 17.60 fantasy points. That was in that win against Jacksonville. And that was 66 yards receiving, 5 catches with 1 touchdown. Got a couple of chats already here. So before we do actives and inactives today, let's get right to the chats. We got a lot of information to go through. So let's get right off and running on your way to your fantasy football championship games, which have already started, obviously. All right. First of all, I want to remind you all the live chat is open throughout the entire show. So even if we are doing other content or talking about a different chat, feel free to drop us a line here. Ask your question, whatever you got for us. We'll get to these as soon as possible, even if we are on other content. Go ahead and start off today with Ilias Giftopoulos. Welcome back, one of our regulars. Ilias Giftopoulos, you say David Montgomery or Aaron Jones. All right, let's put up some information for us to help out with this decision. This is a tough one, I have to say already. These two I expect to both have nice days today. Let's take a look at the matchups first. We have David Montgomery is who you listed first. That is a 1 o'clock game today on the road against Jacksonville. On the left side of your screen, you see the fantasy points allowed to the running back spot. Jacksonville currently at number 4. So certainly that is a great matchup for David Montgomery. I like that matchup there a lot, and Montgomery has been great as of late. On the other side, it is Aaron Jones, and that is the Sunday night game tonight, home against Tennessee. Tennessee at number 7 there in terms of fantasy points to the running back spot. Honestly, these are two great matchups. I think either one of these are fine plays today. Montgomery certainly has been very hot as of late, but it's not like Aaron Jones hasn't played well. Went ahead and started to take a look at some of the, let me see if I can call up over here on my other screen, some of the past couple of weeks here. Let me get that up on my screen real quick. All right, so in terms of Aaron Jones, last week he had the nice game there against Carolina, another team that's vulnerable to the run, 145 yards with a touchdown on a half-point PPR screen that I'm looking at. It was 23.30 fantasy points. He's been 20 or more 2 out of the last 3 games now, and double digits, let's see, 5 out of the last 7. Don't expect Jamal Williams to play in this game, so it wouldn't seem to be any issues with anybody stealing any of his work. You have to think this might be a closer game with Tennessee. So you would think that for sure it's not like it's going to be one of those situations where he is just automatically running the ball all the second half. I think that could make the difference in your choice here. I think of these two, the game script, I think a lot of other factors are going to be even. I always talk about these 4 factors being ability, volume, matchup, and game script. The volume should be there for both. They've both been playing well. The matchups are both good. Really, the only thing that could possibly be different here is the game script, and that is that Jacksonville is I'm not sure that Jacksonville has any interest in winning this game whatsoever. It looks like they're starting Mike Glennon at quarterback today instead of Gardner Minshew. No James Robinson. Chicago most likely is going to be beating up on them pretty bad. And that would mean game script in favor of Montgomery if they're just running the ball. In addition, you look at the last 4 weeks for Montgomery, I'm looking at a half-point screen here, 22.8, 25.1, 23.0, 28.7, 5 touchdowns in the last 3 games alone. Simply on the hot hand right now. Like I said, I don't think either one of these are bad starts. I could see a reason to play Aaron Jones, being that he might be the guy that you've trusted more all season long. In that case, then I can see that reason. But I think all of the other factors, the slight edge to Montgomery in terms of game script, I think more than likely. Also, I'm not sure about the weather in Green Bay. It could be a factor there. But again, there is the potential. Tennessee's been playing quite well for Tennessee actually to be leading that game and Green Bay having to throw the ball more, which of course they're going to do anyway. Devontae Adams has been great. Aaron Rodgers has been great. However, I think game script wise, you would expect Chicago to be winning that game. Slight edge to Montgomery, but again, I think either choice that you pick there is fine. But yeah, I would give a slight edge to Montgomery in this one. And again, Ilias Giftopoulos, one of our regulars, welcome back to the stream. Glad to have you guys with us. Whichever guy that you choose there, I hope that they crush it, get that fantasy championship. All right, next up in line. And as I always say, if I miss anybody's chats, please let me know that I missed you. Sometimes goes a little bit faster on the Sunday show because we have a little bit less time to deal with, but we'll do our best with all these. A.B. Goldberger, one of our regulars, welcome back to the stream. A.B. Goldberger, you say McKissick or Chark now that Gibson is healthy? Very interesting question here. Very tough choice. We'll put up the running back information first. J.D. McKissick in that matchup. Let's see. It is Washington at home against Carolina. Carolina is very bad against the run. 8th most fantasy points being allowed to running backs. Again, these numbers, just to note, these are numbers entering the week, so none of the games that have been played are factoring into these numbers at all. These are the numbers of what they were to start week 16. Let's take a look at what J.D. McKissick has done lately, just for comparison's sake. Again, Antonio Gibson expected to play today. McKissick, double digits 2 out of the last 3 games. If you're playing PPR, he actually probably was all of the last 3 games. Against Seattle in his last game, 21.2, 13 rushes, 51 carries. With Gibson in the fold, you wouldn't expect McKissick to run the ball as much. And I know that the reports that I've seen, they do expect Gibson to have a good workload today. So that means, does McKissick get work as the pass catcher there? Again, in that matchup, Carolina, who knows what the game script will be. But I do think this is a huge question mark for this team. It doesn't look like it's going to be Alex Smith. It looks like it's going to be Dwayne Haskins under center. Obviously, there's been a lot of stuff going on this week with that football team, and I have a feeling this game could kind of reflect that a little bit. I think when there's that much distraction going on, it certainly carries over onto the field many times. The flip side of this, the problem is the flip side isn't a whole lot better. DJ Chark playing against Chicago. It's a bad matchup. Chicago allowing the 5th fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. Now, Chicago has been a little banged up in the secondary, so let's take a look here. They do have corner Jalen Johnson out again, corner Buster Skrine out again. So they're still a little banged up on D. However, I have a hard time trusting DJ Chark at all right now, especially given the fact that, again, Jacksonville starting Mike Glennon. Let me just double check and make sure that no reports are saying otherwise. It is expected to be Glennon getting the start this week. Yes, Glennon will start week 16 against Chicago. That's not good for Chark. You would have rather seen Gardner Minshew there. But again, Jacksonville is in the lead for the number 1 draft pick sweepstakes, and I don't think they have any interest in going elsewhere from that. That being said, this is like the lesser of two evils at this point. I would have to think probably McKissick is a safer play because I just don't know that DJ Chark, with what's going on, clearly they're probably going to be losing that game and they're going to have to throw the ball. But, you know, it's Mike Glennon that's throwing the ball to him. Let's take a look at what he's done in recent games. Let's see if it's anything good. No, nothing good at all. The last 5 games on a half-point PPR screen, he has not broken 10 points. He's got a high of 56 yards. Did have a few more targets in week 14, 9, only 5 last week. Just tough. I mean, I'm looking for any other reports. Even on Yahoo, it says no one has any weekly fantasy value in the Jaguars offense. That kind of, you know, backs up what I was saying. It's just a bad situation. I probably would stay away from DJ Chark if possible, even despite the fact that you expect McKissick to lose a little work with Gibson back. Probably the safer play going with McKissick there, despite it's hard to say. That's really speaking bad of Chark with all the other issues going on in Washington that I'm still leaning towards McKissick there. But I think that's where I would lean. Again, A.B. Goldberger, I hope a lot of that information helps you out for you to make the right decision for you. And again, as I always say, I hope whoever you pick there, I hope that they absolutely crush it. All right, next up from Lucius Foranus 44. Welcome back, one of our regulars, Lucius Foranus 44. You say morning. I say what's up. Made the championship, you say. Appreciate the help. Hope we're doing well. Only question is who to start, Logan Thomas or Mark Andrews. McLaurin is out, so that's a factor. I'm a Kamara owner, so I just need a high floor. All right, so let's take a look at a little bit of this information here. First, fantasy points to tight ends. Again, the Washington game, home against Carolina. That's a 4 o'clock game today. Carolina, the 11th most fantasy points to the tight end spot. Baltimore, that is a 1 p.m. game against the Giants. The Giants at 24 on that list, so 9th fewest, a little bit lower down. However, this is what I will say about this. If you're looking for a safer floor, I think you trust Mark Andrews as the higher tier player. I'm going to call up Mark Andrews' recent stats just for comparisons. And I'll also do the same for Logan Thomas. But again, I think when I talk about these 4 factors being ability, volume, matchup, game script, I think ability-wise, you know, Mark Andrews is the guy. There's a reason why he was drafted so high in fantasy leagues this year. His targets have been decent the last 4 games, 9, 7, 6, 6. Touchdown in 2 of the last 3. And his yardage total in the last 4, 61, 96, 78, 66. 3 out of the last 4 over 10 on a half-point screen. If you were playing full PPR, he's been over 10 all of the last 4 games. I do think that that's probably a safer play simply because of the fact that there is the quarterback scenario going on in Washington right now. Obviously, Logan Thomas had quite the big game last game. However, like I said, I just feel like this is a situation of distractions during the week, just waiting to present itself on the field, and who knows how that will shake out. Thomas, 101 yards last week, 15 targets, 13 catches. He has been pretty decent, over 10, 3 out of the last 4. I don't think Logan Thomas is a bad start today. However, of these 2, I think you trust the higher tier player if you're looking for that floor. And that probably points you towards Mark Andrews. Again, take a look at your opponent. See if there's any common factors on either side. Are you playing against a Lamar Jackson? I doubt you're playing against Dwayne Haskins. Does that make any difference? But again, you're probably in a really good spot as someone who has Alvin Kamara. as most of you probably are. It's a nice week when that happens. I did see it was the most touchdowns ever scored in a Week 16 matchup by a running back. That's just, or it might have been the most points. Whatever it was just a ridiculous amount. So that is good shape for you. I think probably Mark Andrews, to me, seems like a safer play. And that would probably be the way I would lean there. And again, Lucius Varenas 44, thank you for being with the stream. And whoever you picked there, I hope they crush it. Or in your sake, I hope they give you that nice level, consistent production you're looking for. All right, we got a chat here from Larry. Welcome back, Larry, one of our regulars again. Glad to have you. No questions from a boy over here today. My season is done. Happy holidays. Well, glad to have you anyway, even though your season is done. There's still a lot of good games to watch, and we appreciate you being with us on the stream. All right, next up, Manir. And again, we have actives and inactives coming up next. There is a lot to take a look at there, so we will get that next to let you guys know if there's anybody that you're curious about whether or not they're playing or not. We will have those shortly. Manir, and welcome back. One of our regulars, you say Hurts or Rodgers. Let's put up some numbers to help you out with this decision. Take a look at the two matchups. Philadelphia. Great matchup on the road, 4 o'clock against Dallas. Dallas, the 9th most fantasy points to the quarterback spot. Jalen Hurts has been hot, obviously, a great game last week. Sneak preview, he is going to be my number 1 start on starts and sits this week. However, Aaron Rodgers, as someone who is considered an auto start, does not fall on that list. So it's certainly worth consideration, and Rodgers has been great as well this year. Home against Tennessee, that's the Sunday night game. Tennessee's 6th most fantasy points to the quarterback spot. Manir, and this is going to be one of those situations. This is similar to what Lucius asked. Do you feel, if you're still on here, hit me up with another chat. Of these two players, I think if you're in a situation where you feel like you're needing a huge game, you might lean towards the hot guy that's been Hurts as of recent. But if you feel like you're leading or perhaps projected to win on points already, then Rodgers is probably the safer of these two players and the more consistent of these two players as well. And even perhaps in that good of a matchup against Tennessee, he perhaps outscores Jalen Hurts this week. It certainly is very possible. Last week, he was under 20 points for the first time since week 6. So Aaron Rodgers has got you 20 plus like just about every week at this point. He's the guy you've probably been playing all year long. If you are the type of fantasy player that wants to trust that guy that got you here, then Rodgers is probably your pick in this spot. Again, could Jalen Hurts have a big day? Yes. Playing against Dallas, a team that's also very bad against the run, and we know that Jalen Hurts will like to run the ball some. This is a factor for you. Perhaps do you play in a league with a 100-yard bonus, and Jalen Hurts could potentially get you there? And again, that means possibly a higher scoring game is in the works if he plays well. But again, this is one of those situations where I definitely feel Rodgers is the safer of these two plays. And this is one of those answers that isn't so much an answer on my part, but more information. I think if you're looking for a safe floor, consistent production, has a great matchup, I think Rodgers is a great start here. The matchup is so good, I would almost even be hesitant to even bring Hurts into this because of the fact that there is obviously more risk in the fact that he's a rookie quarterback, and you never know what's going to happen. But Dallas also a very great start and a very great team to go against here. So I think either player is a fine start today. The way I look at fantasy football, and I read a quote a couple of weeks ago saying the players that got you to your playoffs in week 14 are going to take you on to week 16 for your championship. Perhaps that's Aaron Rodgers for you. But again, I think Jalen Hurts, there's plenty of reason to think that he's also going to have a nice game today. If you need that safe floor, that consistency, take a look at Rodgers. If you're wanting to swing for the fences, I can't fault you if you were to go the other way. But check your opponent, see if there's any players in common. If your opponent has Devontae Adams, then I think you're starting Aaron Rodgers absolutely for sure. And there should be a lot of teams playing for their championships this week that have Devontae Adams going. So that could be a factor in this decision. But take all those things into consideration. Make that play. And as I always say, Manir, hope whichever guy you pick there, hope they crush it. Thank you for being with us again on the stream today. All right, I'm going to leave up the quarterback stats because the next chat that I see here is from Mentality, and I think you might be a new viewer, Mentality. If not, then I might be mistaken. But either way, welcome. Glad to have you here. You are asking about this, Jalen Hurts, Aaron Rodgers, or Lamar Jackson. Kind of the same situation as we just went through, just with Lamar Jackson thrown in there. So, again, Hurts against Dallas. 12th most points to the quarterback spot on the left side of your screen there. Rodgers against Tennessee, 6th most. Matchup a little bit better. And Lamar Jackson, Baltimore against the New York Giants. That's a 1 o'clock home game. And the Giants are 28th, 5th fewest fantasy points to the quarterback spot. I probably think because of these other two starts are so good, even though Lamar Jackson is the guy that you drafted high, I certainly think it's a very reasonable thought to start one of these other two over Lamar. Obviously, Lamar has been playing very well. I don't expect him to have anything different this game. Over 30 points the last two games. He's only been under 20 once in the last 5 games. I think Lamar Jackson is a fine start. Again, key to this matchup is who you're playing against. Are there any players in common? Devontae Adams is the biggest name I could think of that could potentially be in common. Again, I'll say the same thing. Absolutely, if you're playing against Devontae Adams, then Aaron Rodgers, to make sure that you share those points in case it's a huge game, that protects you in this situation. Again, Rodgers is the best matchup of these three, and Rodgers has been great all year. I think he's a great start. I think Hurts is a fine start also. There's just more risk involved, and when you're going for your championship, I don't know that you want to go after that risk at this point if you don't have to. And the fact that you have Rodgers, and Rodgers has the best matchup of all three, and we would expect them to throw the ball against Tennessee because we wouldn't expect, this is potentially a high-scoring game. I think a lot of signs here point to Rodgers. Again, can't fault you if you go either way on the other guys. Lamar Jackson is a stud, and Jalen Hurts has been hot. To me, I think Rodgers of these three makes a lot of sense if you were to go that direction. But again, mentality, whoever you pick there, I do hope that they crush it. And if you are a new viewer, welcome to the stream. If not, welcome back to the stream. But either way, let's do this before we move on to our next chat, because I haven't done this yet. Let's put up a quick promo for you guys. Let's see, where are we? Here we are, the TFF Live Sunday pregame show. That's what you're watching right now. We're on every Sunday at 12 noon Eastern time, answering all your fantasy football questions and taking you right up until game time, getting you ready for your matchups every week. And we've been with you all year long, so we certainly thank all of you that have joined us throughout the season. And let's get up the rest of our information as well before we move on to our next chat. We are the Fantasy Follow. We are a brand new channel on YouTube this year. All of you regulars who have been with us, we thank you so much for subscribing and moving us closer to our goal of 100 new subscribers. Those of you that are new or might be watching on replay, if you enjoy what we're doing here and you like our content, be sure to click that subscribe button. Since we are a new channel, we don't necessarily come up quite as high in the searches and want to make sure that you're able to get those notifications whenever we have new content. We are also on Twitter at the Fantasy Follow, and that is fantasy spelled FNTSY. You can also send your fantasy football questions to our Twitter account using the hashtag AskTFFLive, and we will answer those questions live on this very show. Facebook / The Fantasy Follow, and website, thefantasyfollow.com. All right, a couple more chats to get through, and then we will go to our actives and inactives next. Want to make sure and get you that information in case you are in need of it. Braden Toll, welcome back. One of our regulars, Braden Toll. Glad to have you here. Hurts or Herbert? It's championship time. It sure is. Let's get some matchup numbers up. Again, this has been the hot question all week, is not running back, quarterback. Do we want Jalen Hurts or do we want somebody else? Again, Hurts is hot. He's still a rookie. You never know. Obviously, Justin Herbert is also a rookie. He's played very well all season. The matchups are good on both sides. Philadelphia road game against Dallas, number 12 in terms of fantasy points to the quarterback spot. Justin Herbert, that is a home game against Denver. Also, both of these at 4 o'clock. Playing against Denver, another great matchup, the 9th most fantasy points to the quarterback spot. We saw Herbert play very well against Las Vegas last week, who was at number 10. So the matchup is right in line with what he was at last week. I certainly think that, again, both of these are fine starts. Your advantage that you have here, Braden, is that you can wait and see what happens with your earlier games. Again, there are different factors in play with both of these players. Hurts, you're going to see a run game floor in place most likely, and Herbert, you're going to see more passing game. This is what I think makes the difference for you in this decision. If there are no players in common to consider here, the Keenan Allen situation, if Keenan Allen does not play, he's at the very least probably going to be limited again this week. I don't expect a big day from Keenan. Now, certainly they still played well last week, even though he didn't do too much. But the fact that their main receiver is hurt, that could reasonably sway me towards Jalen Hurts, given the fact that Hurts has a great matchup. And again, Dallas is bad against the run, and we've seen Jalen Hurts do plenty on the run game, which you would think would mean even though he's a rookie, it does establish his floor a little bit, where potentially, should things go bad in that game for Herbert without his top receiver, again, didn't go bad last week, but that potential is still there. I know for myself personally, I mulled through making this exact switch last week because of this Keenan Allen situation. Because I actually have Herbert, and I actually have him going in a championship game this week. I have Herbert and Allen as a stack in that league. So I thought through this situation quite a bit. If Allen didn't play, there was plenty of reason for me to also take Herbert out of that lineup if possible. Again, I would look to that. I think that Allen makes the decision for you. I think without Keenan Allen, it makes it more strong that you can make that switch and go towards Jalen Hurts. I do think both of these are good matchups. I think they both have potential, but I do think that even if Keenan Allen plays, it's possible that he's very limited. And you do say, I think they said Keenan isn't playing, and I have not seen anything for sure on that yet, and I wouldn't expect that to necessarily come out until the inactives come out. And again, just to note, for a 4:05 game, so actives and inactives always come out an hour and a half before the games. So check around 2:30, and you'll have an official notification on that. It does say NFL Network's Ian Rappaport says Keenan Allen has a chance to play. He wants to play, and it's a game-time decision. However, last week it was not – well, I guess it kind of was a game-time decision. We saw them not use him much in terms of usage. So, again, I have a feeling that this is going to be kind of the same deal this week. And you say I had to bench Keenan for, I'm guessing, Justin Jefferson. So you got decent production there. You already went away from your stack. So you don't have the Herbert Allen stack anymore. So therefore, I think this decision can definitely lean you towards Hurts. There are a lot of things that make some sense there. So again, use that information to your best. But if it were me, I would wait as long as possible. Find out if Keenan's playing, find out if he's not playing. Take a look at your opponent, see where you're at. You will know by the time you get to the end of those 1 o'clock games if you need to swing for the fences or if you need to play safe. You'll be able to make a more informed decision at that point. But I definitely don't think that Hurts is a bad thought, especially given the fact that you've already taken Keenan Allen out of your lineup. Less reason to be standing along with Herbert at that point. So again, Braden Toll, hope you get that championship. I know that you were talking about getting there and wanting to get it done, so I want to see that happen for you. Good luck, and whichever guy you pick there, I hope they crush it. All right, next up from Builder 1K. So I lost in fantasy, but I just came to check in. Welcome back, Builder 1K, one of our regulars. I will say this. Thank you so much to all the regulars that have been here all season. You are a huge part of helping this channel grow. As I always say, I would rather be talking fantasy football with you guys than just talking to you guys. So we can prepare a lot of content, but the chat is where it's at. Hey, that rhymes. I like that. That might be our new slogan. The chat is where it's at. What do you think, guys? Tell me if you like that one. Braden Toll says, thanks a million. I say no. Again, thank you, guys. All right. Biohazard looks like he might be a new viewer to the stream. Welcome, Biohazard. Glad to have you here. Again, actives and inactives. We will get those next. I will probably get those after this one because I don't want to go too long in case anyone needs that information and hasn't seen it yet. But we'll get this one first. Biohazard, you say Hunt, Gibson, or JT, pick 2, half PPR. All right, let's put up stats to the running back position and go through these one by one. Kareem Hunt, that is a, road game against the Jets, 1 o'clock. The Jets have fallen to 22nd in terms of fantasy points to the running back spot. We saw them a much higher spot on that list just a few weeks back. Think back to when Devontae Booker was taking the spot for Josh Jacobs for the Raiders against the Jets. And we all thought that Devontae Booker was in a great spot to have a great game, and he didn't. The Jets have seemed to be a little bit tougher against the run than we might have thought. So some reason for pause here. However, the flip side of that is with so many players out of the game for Cleveland, you have to expect they're going to run the ball a ton. So you would think there's enough to go around for both Chubb and Hunt. On the other side of that, you've got Antonio Gibson. That's a 4 o'clock game against Carolina. The matchup, Carolina, the 8th most fantasy points to the running back spot. I like Antonio Gibson a whole lot. I've liked him all year. I'm going to look for any reports here just to see what they're saying, because obviously it's a player coming back from injury, but I have heard that he's expected to get a lot of work today. Let's take a look. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport reports Antonio Gibson expected to play. Doesn't say, it says should be in line to resume seeing a massive workload. The matchup against Carolina is great. We've seen them get hurt by the run game a lot this year. And I think Antonio Gibson is going to be more the lead back role, whereas Kareem Hunt will be more the change of pace guy. So you would think, goal line touches and whatnot in favor of Gibson there. I like him. Jonathan Taylor, I assume that's who you're talking about with JT for Indianapolis. Let's take a look at that matchup. Let's see. Road game, 1 o'clock against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, the third fewest fantasy points to the running back spot. Again, a lot of players in the backfield between Taylor, Hines. It's more or less been the two of them. I think more. I don't know that Jordan Wilkins has been worked in as much as he had a little bit earlier in the season. If we're picking two here and it's half PPR, I definitely think that Gibson is my number one. I think at this point he's been so good all year. If they say he's healthy and he says he's healthy, I think you roll with him. Obviously, things can go bad whenever someone's returning about injury here, but I think he's been very good. He got you this far in the year because you took a shot on the guy, drafted him in the later rounds, and he paid off. If it were me, I'd like to see that guy be able to win me my championship. So I think he's a decent pick here. Between the other two, the matchup is better for Hunt, plain and simple, against the Jets, and they're missing so many receivers. With Kareem Hunt being a guy that they like to use as a pass catcher as well. Very possible that they work him in and just try to run him as a straight-up wide receiver with both Hunt and Chubb on the field at the same time. That allows you to stay away from that bad matchup against Pittsburgh for Taylor. So for me, probably picking those two. Obviously, the reason why I present a lot of information is because, as I always say, sometimes you'll hear what I say, and you'll be like, yeah, Joe, that makes some sense. Or, no, I don't know, Joe. I kind of like this other guy. So I like to give you a lot of information aside from just my opinion, because fantasy football is all about opinions. And by all means, I do not think I'm the only one out there. So I try to present as much information to lead you towards the picks that you like the best in addition. To me, I think Gibson, number one, and Hunt, number two. I think that's a very reasonable way to lean here based on the matchups. And based on the other things that are in play in those games. Again, Biohazard, I do, if you're new to the stream, welcome. Glad to have you with us today. Certainly love to have you on future streams. And again, whichever you guys you pick there, I hope that they crush it, go and get that championship, and you say thank you. And I say again, no, thank you. Adrian Allegre, back on the stream, one of our regulars. Thank you for what you do. Absolutely appreciate you guys for what you do. And glad to have all of you regulars back with the stream. And I know I've said this before, Adrian, but I'll say it again for those of you that weren't on the other night when you were on. Thank you for your service. Absolutely glad to have you guys with us every week. And let me go ahead. I see Austin McBurney. You are going to be next, but Austin, hang with us because I do want to get, before it gets too late, I want to get the actives, inactives up on the screen so we can talk about that a little bit. In case some of you don't have that information yet, I know you guys are probably paying attention to all of the different shows. But we do want to make sure that we have everything up there that you might need to make these decisions. So the first game we talk about here, Atlanta and Kansas City. We know Julio Jones is inactive in this game. Unfortunately, that's a rough one there. We'll see what that does for other players like Russell Gage and possibly Hayden Hurst in that lineup. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is out. They do not expect him back before the playoffs. So it's going to be Le'Veon Bell with a very nice workload there. Going to be interesting to see what he does with a full workload. And then on the flip side of that, Tyreke Hill, who was questionable with a hamstring injury during the week, he is not on the inactive list, so expect Tyreke Hill to play. I'm sure he is in play in a lot of your fantasy football championships. So fire him up and be ready for a big game there in Kansas City. All right, next up to go through here is the game we talked about. That is Cleveland and the Jets. So, of course, I did not put anybody on this screen, which I certainly should have because there are tons of players out. However, they aren't on the injury list. They are simply out from earlier in the week. So let me just call up. It is Jarvis Landry who is out. Let me go ahead and get this off the screen because that doesn't help you out at all. It is Jarvis Landry who is out, and they don't even have them listed on their injury report. Rashard Higgins is out. Just about, okay, here's Jarvis. That's weird. They have him as on the injury report without a designation. We did hear that he's out. Let me go ahead and just double check these. I don't want to give you guys bad information. So I'm going to call up Cleveland on the Yahoo instead of doing it this way, just to make sure that everything is in place the way I expect it to be. Yes, Jarvis Landry out. Rashard Higgins out. Donovan Peoples-Jones out. Kadarrell Hodge out. All of these are wide receivers for Cleveland. You would expect a decent day for potentially Austin Hooper in this situation. Marvin Hall is a name that's out there. David Njoku, Harrison Bryant. But again, this is where there's some potential for Kareem Hunt, I think, as a pass catcher as well. So we'll see what happens there. But those are the guys that you're missing there in that Cleveland game. All right, next up, we've got Indianapolis and Pittsburgh. The only guy really to look at here on the Pittsburgh side, and that is Anthony McFarland. That is worth keeping an eye on a little bit because obviously Benny Snell and McFarland have been cutting into James Conner's work just a little bit in that backfield. So it will be interesting to see again if Conner can actually start to have some production for Pittsburgh. We have not seen them run the ball very well at all. I'm going to call up Pittsburgh's just to double check, make sure there's nobody that I'm missing there, and no, there is not. So that is that run in that game. Nothing on the Indianapolis side. Next up, Chicago at Jacksonville. Jacksonville in the Trevor Lawrence Bowl here. Nobody but you're only allowed to be on this list if your last name is Robinson in this game. So Allen Robinson is active for the Bears, and James Robinson is inactive for Jacksonville. Of note, Jake Luton, also the quarterback, inactive for Jacksonville, but don't think that that really makes all that much of a difference here whatsoever. Other than that, that is who you have. Again, Chicago banged up on the defensive side as well, but we only put fantasy players on these graphics for you. Next up, New York Giants at Baltimore. Daniel Jones is expected to start in this game. Marquise Brown is active in this game. Inactive, we've got Golden Tate. And again, Baltimore, if you are in a situation where you're interested in playing J.K. Dobbins or Gus Edwards, Baltimore has done you a favor by making Mark Ingram inactive. So you know it's down to just two players in that backfield. Gives you a little bit more confidence if you like either one of them in a very decent start there in terms of the running back position. And then finally, for the 1 o'clock games, 6 games at 1 o'clock today, Cincinnati at Houston. For Cincinnati, no Tyler Boyd after that concussion from last week. And also no Duke Johnson for Houston. And the Duke Johnson injury, I talked about this during the week, is important to note because we did see David Johnson have a huge game last week. And a lot of that was pass catching, which certainly David Johnson is capable of doing. That's kind of the way they use Duke Johnson in that offense. The fact that he's not there does mean that David Johnson, again, probably in line for another decent day if he's a player that you're thinking about starting today. All right, let's run through the afternoon games because there are important players to look at here. 4:05 Denver at the LA Chargers. For Denver, no Phillip Lindsay. So this is important to know. Melvin Gordon is the main guy in the backfield. Even Royce Freeman listed as questionable for that game. So perhaps you're in need of a running back. Melvin Gordon, the only guy there, should get the volume. This helps you in that situation if needed. On the Chargers side, we talked about Keenan Allen, questionable. Hunter Henry is on protocol, so he is not in this game at the tight end spot either. Perhaps this is a situation where you fire up Mike Williams. It's in a possible start there that could, if you need a wide receiver. A lot of ways to look at that game. Carolina at Washington is a 4:05 game. Christian McCaffrey listed as doubtful. I don't think it's expected that he would play, so you would expect Mike Davis to be the guy there again, barring any surprises. No real notable players other than that on the Carolina side. For Washington, it does look like it's going to be Dwayne Haskins and not Alex Smith. Alex Smith currently listed as questionable. Terry McLaurin listed as doubtful. Does not look like he's going to play. And again, Antonio Gibson listed as questionable, but does look likely to play in this game. So very good if you have Gibson to get him back. Let's see. Philadelphia at Dallas, 4:25. On the questionable side for Philadelphia, nobody questionable to speak of. Richard Rodgers, tight end, is out for the Eagles. Nobody else on that list. On the Dallas side, Ezekiel Elliott is listed as questionable again. It does sound like he will probably try to play through this injury. But again, this is a spot to keep an eye on because obviously Tony Pollard had a great game last week. So should anything happen there, if Zeke doesn't play, then Tony Pollard is a guy whose value goes way up again. 4:25 game, the LA Rams and Seattle. Let's see what we've got here. Cam Akers for the Rams is out, so just Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown in that backfield. And on the flip side of that, Seattle, let's see if we have anybody of note, and we do not. And then 8:20, the Sunday night game, Tennessee and Green Bay. Let's see. A.J. Brown was listed on the injury report during the week. He has no status listed, so shouldn't be any concerns with him not playing. Nobody else on the list there for Tennessee. And on the Green Bay side, only tight end Jay Sternberger probably doesn't impact you. I shouldn't say only. Jamal Williams, doubtful in the backfield there. So even more confidence in Aaron Jones and his workload. And then the Monday night game is my Buffalo Bills. And let's see, we do not have anybody listed, not even Stephon Diggs listed on the injury report. And for New England, the Bills didn't. So I'm looking at the Bills screen here. They did not add the New England injury report. They probably did everybody a favor because New England probably has about 28 players listed on their injury report. I'm not going to bother going through all those guys for you. That's what they do. Thank you, New England, for doing that to us every week. Not going to worry about it. So that's your run of games. Hope all that information helps. We are about 15 minutes to game time. So let's go back, get these next chats here. And we do have starts and sits. We will rip through them quickly after we're done with the chats, but the chats are most important because we know you guys have lineup decisions to make. Austin McBurney, welcome to the stream. Looks like you might be a new viewer. Welcome. Glad to have you with us. You say, worried about Robinson's hamstring and A.J. Brown's ankle, whether start Geo Bernard, Hilton, or Corey Davis over either. So if you're still on with us, Austin McBurney, thank you for waiting while we went through those actives, inactives. Just drop me a chat here if you're talking about James Robinson or Allen Robinson, because James Robinson is out. Allen Robinson, his matchup is so good. I think that if they let him go and they don't see any injury issues, I think it's hard not to play him here. So taking a look at this matchup here, Jacksonville allowing the 6th most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. I expect Allen Robinson to have a big day, but let me go ahead and check on any reports about that injury that he might possibly be worried about here. He's not listed as questionable. I might assume that you might be talking about James Robinson here. Allen Robinson hamstring is active. Says he's ready to roll. I would not hesitate at all in playing Allen Robinson. He's been too good as of late. He's averaging over 20 in his last 4. It's hard to put him on the bench. I think at this point you have to just hope that things are okay because the matchup is so good. A.J. Brown, I could possibly see a little bit more of an argument for going away from A.J. Brown here. Let me see if there are any follow-ups here. Yes, you do say Allen Robinson. Yeah, I think you got to go with him at this point. A.J. Brown, I could potentially see a little bit of an argument that you could go a different direction because of the fact that the matchup is not as good. And as you say, possible weather. I have not checked to see what the weather situation there is. Let me see if it'll allow me to do that. Of course, every time I type in A.J., it doesn't come up. So let's just type in Brown. He should be there somewhere. All right. Got him. Let's see. Weather. Of course, it doesn't show me the weather when I do that. Let's just talk about the matchup. Well, I'll figure that out in 1 second. Tennessee at Green Bay. Green Bay, you see them on the left side of your screen, 22nd in terms of fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver spot. A.J. Brown is a stud. I feel like I would have a hard time sitting A.J. Brown for my fantasy football championship unless I felt really good about one of those other players. The forecast there is snow. The wind is 11 miles per hour. So that's not great for the passing game, but we've certainly seen it happen before. Out of the other guys that you list, I would not go Corey Davis, over Brown because the matchup is just as bad. And, Brown is the number one there. T.Y. Hilton is an interesting thought. He's a boomer bust guy. Perhaps do you need that, or are you looking for the safer floor? The matchup against Pittsburgh, not great either there. Where does Pittsburgh fall? 24th, so 9th fewest. So they're even a little bit lower in terms of matchup. So I would not probably go with him over Brown either. The only guy on your list that you could potentially see making this move to me is Geo Bernard. And that's because he has an outstanding matchup on the road against Houston. Houston allowing the 2nd most fantasy points to the running back spot. That is a great spot being that Geo Bernard, you expect to be getting all the workload there. And we did just see Geo have a very nice game last week against Pittsburgh. So, yeah, I don't think that you start him over Robinson, but I think you could consider starting him over A.J. Brown. Unfortunately, that is an early game, so you would have to make that decision right away. So I could see that situation being a potential because the matchup is that good. And again, A.J. Brown's matchup is not quite as good, but I do expect a stud like A.J. Brown. I mean, this is a guy that you want. You went with him all year. He's gotten you this far. And if it were me and I started a Geo Bernard who has had only really one good game on a team starting their third-string quarterback, it's very easy for them to be losing badly. I mean, I know that Ryan Finley got that win last week, but you saw what that offense was. A lot of the time it was snap the ball to Ryan Finley and everybody run around and hope that he does something with it. I mean, it wasn't all too, let's say, in line with what you might expect to be something you could repeat week in and week out. So, yes, I will say this. I could definitely see an argument for Geo Bernard. If you're playing PPR, this might make your decision. In a PPR league, it's all the more reason to stick with that wide receiver. I think A.J. Brown, the matchup is there for Bernard. I will say this, if you're trailing in your matchup, or if you feel like you need to swing for the fences to win this matchup, then that strengthens the argument for Bernard. If you want the safer floor, that probably swings you in AJ's favor, especially if you're playing PPR. That would be where I would hinge that decision for you. If it's not PPR and you need I'm sorry, I was A. Aladdin. I thought you said that. If it's not PPR, then there is more of a reason to go with Bernard. And again, if you need to swing for the fences, then Bernard is the potential for a bigger game because of that matchup. Just tough to try. I mean, yeah, if you need the points, the matchup is there. So I'm not going to say Geo is a bad start. I could even reasonably, if I continued to think this through, I could even reasonably say that it might be the better start anyway. I think it's very close. So again, it's going to come down to how you like to play your leagues. Do you want to trust a guy that got you there? Or do you want to go with that potentially big game out of a guy on a team that's not so good? That's where that decision lies for you. I do hope that whichever guy you pick there, I know sometimes my answers don't necessarily answer the question, but hopefully they point you in a direction where you want to go. So again, Austin McBurney, hope that whichever guy you pick there works out for you. I definitely think Robinson for sure, and I think you do have a situation where you could swap Geo for Brown, but I don't think it's a 100% deal. So I would say your rosters, go with what you feel based on all that information suits you the best in that matchup and go get that win. All right, let me run through these next ones a little bit quicker just to make sure and get everybody in. Let's get the running back stats gone here. Jelly God 29, looks like you might be a new viewer. Welcome to the stream. You say, should I trust Deontay? I think that you can. I guess it depends on who you're thinking of starting instead of him. But I don't think he's a bad start this week. I know Indy has been one of those defenses that's been a little bit more tough, but we have seen them get hit a little bit in the past few weeks as well. In terms of the matchup numbers, you see 19th fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. So just in the bottom half, you do expect Pittsburgh to be leaning to the pass game no matter what. They've done it all year. I think Deontay, to me, is their number one guy. I know there's other mouths to feed there, but Deontay has had plenty of targets as they've gone. So I think you can, again, unless you have to have somebody that's significantly better, probably, to not think about going with a Deontay Johnson in this spot. I'm going to look up his numbers real quick just to show me the targets. I do want to see where he was at last week. Back up to 13 last week. He's been double-digit targets in 6 of the last 7 games. The volume is there. Yes, I think you trust Deontay unless you have somebody that tells you that, if there's some reason that somebody has a better matchup, then I don't think that you want to go away from someone who's been that high a volume all straight through. Jelly God 29, thank you for the chats. Thank you for being with us. Let's see up who's next here as I run through these. I do want to get starts and sits in as we get closer to game time in case anybody wants them. Chill Will, welcome back to the stream, one of our regulars. You say, what's up, bro? I say, what's up, Chill Will? So I'm up 95. Only 95? You're up. Head Kamara, and then last minute bench Geo for Gaskin. Awesome. Good move there. Now should I flex Geo or keep Beasley? Full PPR and good luck. I think Geo over Beasley there. I know that Beasley has been very good. But the matchup there, obviously, you're up so many points. I don't know that Cole Beasley is necessarily a safer play compared to Geo Bernard. Last 3 weeks, over 10 targets, but I do believe that John Brown expected to be back this week. So that will cut it into his targets. And again, playing against New England, sometimes New England does have a knack for getting to other quarterbacks and kind of doing a little trick on them. So I don't expect Buffalo to play poorly in this game. No, let's see. John Brown, let's see if he's expected to return. Let's see here. John Brown will not play in week 15. Doesn't help us. I do think it's possible that he's back. Either way, Geo Bernard with that matchup there. If you're PPR, perhaps you stick with Beasley. But I think that's such a good matchup. Obviously, your initial instinct was to play him as a running back anyway, and you put in Gaskin. So you know that was your initial instinct. I think putting him in your flex is very reasonable. You're up 95. I want you to get that win, but it's an awful good matchup. Just in case you didn't see the matchup against Houston, second most fantasy points to the running back spot, as you see on the left side of your screen. So yeah, I don't think that's one that you shy away from there. Beasley, in terms of the wide receiver numbers against New England, the third fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. So the matchup is way better. Probably a safer play in this situation. I like that move. And thank you again, Chill Will. You say, thanks, bro, and good luck to all. Thank you. And the same thing, good luck to all. All right, Aladdin, let's go. How much time? We got 5 minutes before we get on to our first game. Start one, Pollard, Zach Moss, Ozigbo, Williams, Perrine, Kuti. Woof. Let's say this. If Zeke doesn't play, then Tony Pollard all day. There is an argument for Tony Pollard, even if Zeke does play, because they may have to protect Zeke a little bit. But the matchup, let's see, Dallas, home against Philadelphia, 20th on that list. Buffalo, I do expect to play well against New England and run the ball a lot. New England's been vulnerable to the run. 9th most fantasy points to the running back spot. I can't say that I am familiar at all with what Ozigbo has done this year, so let me try to call him up. He doesn't even want to come up. Ozigbo for Jacksonville. I would not play anybody against Chicago on Jacksonville, given the fact that they're starting Mike Glennon. I'm sorry, this is a running back. Okay, this is one I'm not as familiar with. Let's see. Could split reps for Ogunbowale in Jacksonville's backfield. So you're looking at probably splitting reps according to the report. Reasonable thought there. The matchup is not great. Chicago, where are they on the list here? 23rd, not a great matchup. Moss has the better matchup, and Moss is definitely going to split touches there. Jacksonville is going to be losing that game, so they're not going to have any game script favor there. I don't know that I would go that direction. B. Williams, I need a little bit more information on telling me who you're talking about there. If you're talking about Damian Williams from Kansas, like Damian Williams is not. I'm looking through the Williamses. Duke Williams, Darrell Williams, Dexter Williams. Hit me back. Tell me who you're talking about there with Williams, but I don't know. I would think he would be probably a little bit higher up in my thought process. Perrine for Cincinnati, I don't think he's going to get the work over Bernard. Kiki Kuti is a possibility for Houston. Of course, he doesn't come up. Kiki Kuti. Here's what we got here. Let's see what he's done recently. Houston wide receivers. There's the matchup against Cincinnati. They are, where are they? 17th, so right in the middle. I really kind of think, I can't say Kiki Kuti is probably, given the fact that there's still no Will Fuller there. He's had double digits 2 out of the last 3. He's probably number 1 on this list to me. I'd probably take him first. I'd probably order him this way. If Zeke plays, I would go Kuti first, Moss second, Pollard third, and then Ozigbo fourth. But I think Kuti is the best Chiefs running back. Yeah, I don't think that he's going to get that work over Bell in that situation. I think Bell's going to get the main bulk load of that work. I would say probably Kuti is my choice there. Again, if Zeke doesn't play, it's an easy pick there for Pollard. But if he does, and we assume that he does, Kuti first choice. And if you rather go running back, probably Moss second, because New England bad against the run. Going to have a lot of goal line touches for Buffalo in that game. I expect Buffalo to win that game pretty big. I just think that's not me being a homer, even though I am Bills Mafia, but I just think that New England is at the end of their rope in a frustrating year, and I wonder if they will show up as they normally do. Aladdin, and you say standard. Thank you for the chat there. In standard, I could see an argument for Moss, but he doesn't have enough volume for me to put him over the potential for Cutie there. All right, next up, let's see. A couple minutes. We will cram these starts and sits in. You say Pollard or Kiki half PPR. Well, I guess we already Jalen Robertson again. I want to get your name in there. Welcome to the stream. If you are a new viewer, it looks like you might be Pollard or Kiki half PPR. Again, I will say Kiki unless Zeke doesn't play. If Zeke doesn't play, it's Pollard for sure. So keep an eye on those reports. That looks like all of the chats, and I know that we are about at game time, so it makes sense that would be all of the chats. Again, that Houston game is a 1 o'clock game, so kind of tough to make that choice now, but I don't think that you can – it's going to be very easy for Zeke to get in that game, feel fine, and for Tony Pollard to not get any of that work. So I probably wouldn't go that way without knowing for sure. And I haven't looked up to see any reports if there are anything on Zeke to tell us if he's out for sure at this point. I doubt that there is. No, he's still questionable. So I think you got to go Cutie there. All right, that is all the chats. So here's what we're going to do. We are at 1 o'clock. It's game time. I'm going to run through these starts and sits anyway because we've got them here. And some of you might be watching on replay, or you might want this information anyway. Perhaps there are players in later games. So we will put these up. Again, if you're watching on replay, please feel free to leave us your comments and let us know what you think about any of these players. But let's run through these really quick. All right, top quarterback start this week. I have got Jalen Hurts. We've talked a lot about him. Dallas, 12th most fantasy points to the quarterback spot. So I think Jalen Hurts is a fine start this week. The rest of my top 5, Justin Herbert. Again, we heard about this in a possible decision here. I think Herbert is a fine start as well. Against Denver, a good matchup. Mitchell Trubisky, another great matchup against Jacksonville. Jared Goff, he's been up and down. Again, take these starts and sits with a grain of salt this week because with this many games already happening, again, some of these are going to be more on the fence than normal. So a guy like Jared Goff, I've got him as a start because of the matchup, but he's a guy that's been a little bit iffy. And then Baker Mayfield has been great, but he's missing about half of his team. So that's a little bit of a tough one there. But nonetheless, I've got him as a start. My top sit this week is going to be Teddy Bridgewater against Washington, a tough matchup here. Washington, the 11th fewest fantasy points to the quarterback spot. They have not allowed 20 or more to a quarterback in the last 5 games. So this is a little bit of a tough spot for Teddy Bridgewater. I've got him as the top sit. The rest of the quarterback sits here for this week. Phillip Rivers against Pittsburgh. Again, a rough matchup there. Ben Roethlisberger has been a little bit questionable for that Pittsburgh team as of late. Gardner Minshew is not starting, so please do not play him. You will not get very many fantasy points. And again, on the fence here a little bit more, Ryan Tannehill against Green Bay. Again, I usually try to give 5. So with a lot of games already in play, those guys at the bottom of the list might be a little bit less of a strong sit than they otherwise might be. But nonetheless, I did add Ryan Tannehill potentially in a little bit tougher matchup there against Green Bay. Wide receivers, I've got Allen Robinson as the top start this week. We talked about him already. I think this is a great spot. 6th most fantasy points in the league allowed by Jacksonville. They've given up 20-plus fantasy points to 9 receivers in the last 10 games, and they've given up 100-plus receiving yards 9 times in the last 10 games. Great start for Allen Robinson. He is my top start this week. The rest of the top 5 to take a look at here. Robert Woods against Seattle. Again, this matchup is a great matchup on paper, but Seattle scares me a little bit. They haven't allowed anybody to go 15 or more in terms of wide receivers in the last 5 games at this point. I do include Woods still on this list because the matchup numbers are still there. Amari Cooper for Dallas. I think he's their main guy. They got to work him into that offense there if they're going to have any luck there in that game as they have all year long. And again, if Zeke does not play, all the more reason that Cooper should see a little bit more work. Mecole Hardman for the Kansas City Chiefs. I like this matchup again. Tyreke Hill possibly a little bit banged up and a good matchup against Atlanta. And again, in that same game as Woods, Cooper Kupp for the Rams. Top sit for the wide receiver spot. I've got Tyler Lockett in that same game. Again, this is a rough one. We would expect Jalen Ramsey to be locked up on DK Metcalf, but I do feel like that Rams defense is good across the board in the secondary. They have only given up 15-plus fantasy points 4 times in the last 5 games. I'm sorry, they've given up 4 in the last 5 games, but only once in the 6 before that. So I've got Tyler Lockett as the top sit this week. I think that's a little bit of a rough spot, possibly a lower scoring game there. Top 5, DJ Moore for Carolina. Bad matchup against Washington. DJ Chark, again, not a good matchup, and quarterback shuffle for Jacksonville. Corey Davis there for Tennessee. Green Bay a little bit tougher again on the fence for these, and Russell Gage against the Chiefs with no Julio Jones. You would expect him to get volume, but again, the Chiefs are a little bit tougher against the pass. All right, continuing to run through these. I know we're past game time, but just in case you guys are watching on replay, we will continue these for everybody to see. Miles Sanders is the top start at the running back spot, playing against Dallas. Dallas leaking fantasy points to just about everybody, but especially to the run game, the 6th most in the league. They've given up 18-plus fantasy points 6 times this year, and they've given up 100 or more rushing yards 5 times just in the last 9 games. Sanders has averaged 89.5 rushing yards over his last 2 games, so he is the top start this week. Here is the rest of the top 5. David Montgomery in what I feel was a very close choice for that top start. I think this is also a great spot for Montgomery in this game, playing against Jacksonville. Again, Geo Bernard, a great spot here against Houston. I think Austin Eckler, same deal for the Chargers against Denver, especially with no Keenan Allen in that game. Even more work for him. And again, a nice matchup for J.K. Dobbins with the Ravens there. Top sit at the running back spot is going to be Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley has been a little bit of a mystery as of late. Again, that matchup against Kansas City is not the worst matchup, but not the best. But Todd Gurley has been all over the place. I don't think you can trust him at this point in your lineup. The rest of my top 5, Mike Davis for Carolina, tough spot against Washington. Nyheim Hines, again, bad matchups all across the board here. James Robinson, as we know, is out, so please do not play him. You will not get very many fantasy points. And Frank Gore in a tough matchup against Cleveland as well. Tight end spot, the top start this week, I've got Robert Tonyan for the Green Bay Packers. Again, a nice matchup here, playing against Tennessee, and Tennessee currently allowing the 13th most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. They've given up 12-plus fantasy points 6 times this year, and we've seen Robert Tonyan 5 straight games now with a touchdown. So I've got him again this week as the top start. The rest of the top 5 here at the tight end spot, Hayden Hurst with no Julio Jones. You expect a bump in volume there. Logan Thomas has been playing well for Washington. Austin Hooper with half of their receivers out of this game. We expect some good potential there for him. And I've got Jonnu Smith from Tennessee also in that Green Bay game. All right, and the top sit at the tight end spot this week, I've got Eric Ebron from the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Colts. The Colts, the 5th fewest fantasy points to the tight end spot. So again, we've had a nice run of games for Ebron, but he was banged up and actually didn't even see a final report on where he was at. But I know he's dealing with some injury issues. So I've got him as the top sit this week. The rest of the top 5 there, Trey Burton from the Colts, Tyler Higbee from the Rams, Drew Sample from the Bengals, and I've even included Evan Ingram, who I've had on many lists this year. I've got him on a sit list this week, and that is the top 5 at the tight end spot. All right, so if you're watching live, we are just past game time. We got all those starts and sits in. If you're watching on replay, we do thank you for being with the show. We'll get up our information for you just to wrap things up. And first off, that is this piece of information. And this is the TFF Live Sunday Pregame Show. We thank you for being with us. We remind you we're here every Sunday at 12 noon Eastern time, answering all your fantasy football questions and getting you ready for all of your matchups each week. And then again, here is the rest of our information. We are the Fantasy Follow. We are a brand new channel on YouTube this season. Again, thank all of you regulars who have been with us right along the way, and especially all of you who have subscribed to our channel, helping us to move closer to our goal of 100 new subscribers. If you are a new viewer or if you are watching on replay and you do enjoy what you're seeing here and you want to get more content from us, be sure and click that subscribe button. As a new channel, we don't come up quite as high on the searches. Want to make sure that you get those notifications whenever we have new content, and we thank you for being with us as well. We are also on Twitter at the Fantasy Follow, and that is fantasy spelled FNTSY. And you can send us your fantasy football questions during the week to our Twitter account using the hashtag AskTFFLive, and we will answer those questions live right here on our Sunday pregame show. Facebook / the Fantasy Follow, and our website, fantasyfollow.com. All right, a lot of information for you today. This Sunday show moves a little bit faster, so we thank all of you for being in the chat. A lot of good questions. Big week of football. All of you going for your championships. We want you to all go out there and get that W, win that league. Absolutely get those games on your screens and start yelling for your players and yelling against your opponent's players. It's been a great run through the playoffs here, but want to see you take home that championship. So again, great day of football, and all the best to all of you guys. As I always say, good luck in fantasy. We'll see you next week.